It's kind of a bummer that we got to re-record this intro or record this intro because I feel like whatever our intro was that we originally recorded was really good.
Well, then why don't you just put this after what we already recorded?
So you're saying I should do that and then this and then that again?
Yeah.
And break it in?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, wherever this is going, welcome to episode 53 of the Daily Motor Podcast. We are coming to you right after. This will be December 27th, I believe. So you and I will actually, when this is live, you and I will be getting up and getting ready to come into the office to record. I don't know if we'll record podcast or swap cars or whatever.
Kia Sportage. And
we will be shooting
else.
videos on the cars that we've already talked about right now. So if you want to hear about the cars that we talked about in episode 52, you got to wait for episode 54 because this is a little bonus post-holiday episode that we recorded talking about the cars that we've owned.
All of them.
Yes, every car that we've owned.
Yeah. And there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And we weren't sure who's owned more cars. So by the end, if you listen in, you'll find out.
Yeah. Comment who you think it was before you get to the end.
That's a very YouTuber-y thing to say.
Yeah. Thank you.
You are the more YouTuber of us.
Thank you. Am I?
Yeah, you said you're the YouTuber, I'm the journalist.
Oh, okay. Is it just because I'm younger than you?
It's because you literally claimed that for yourself. You said you
don't
don't see
remember.
yourself as a journalist, you see yourself as a YouTuber.
I don't think I ever said that, but...
Play it back. Someone find which
find-
episode that was in there.
Someone goes through like 50 hours of podcast to find it.
William will know.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
So thank you all. Enjoy episode 53
3.
of the Daily Motor Podcast. And as always, drive on. I've had a rough week.
I know you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Lots
poisoned
of,
by Nissan.
Well, it's kind of funny because you and Emily and I were here chatting about her time with food poisoning.
So bizarre, the timing of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
I willed
weird
that into existence.
It's weird how the universe works in
Yeah.
some ways like that. It makes me question reality sometimes.
I've never had food poisoning.
Really?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I have always been under the impression, also I'm realizing that our camera is not very centered. I've always been under the impression that food poisoning works much like a heavy night of drinking or something like that, or like some Taco Bell or something where you kind of get one good vom out and you're like, oh, I feel much better. You know, when you just needed to get out of your system. But no, I literally had, and I'm sorry if there are any children watching the Daily Motor Podcast.
Trigger warning. Trigger warning. Trigger warning. Turn it off if you can't handle it.
But I did have the expressed the situation we were discussing last week where I needed a receptacle on both ends, put it that way, at one given time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Did you have to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you use?
Well, a bucket and a toilet.
Well, obviously the toilet, but
A bucket. Yeah.
Bucket.
Yeah. Our recycling. We keep a little like paper recycling bin under the sink. That was not.
I'm sorry
used
to
for
laugh,
paper.
but geez,
No. I mean, it was
horrible.
You know me. I generally have a pretty good spirit about most things. So even during like my sickness, I had jokes about it, but it was rough.
I opened up Be Real that day, and you just had the most hopeless look on your face, and I was like, "Wow, Charlie's really not okay."
Well, that's just because I had the Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek. That's all that was from.
It had nothing to do with the illness. It's just you're thinking about the freaking whatever those
Going
tires
out
were.
and driving those Toyos. Yeah, no, it was rough.
Yeah,
I was out from Thursday night until essentially Sunday morning was when I was finally feeling about 90%.
So 2 days of misery.
And it was interesting because I messaged one of our fleet managers, Tenny, who always confirms with us on Friday, our car swaps that are going to happen the next week. And I got back to her late in the day and was like, I'm sorry, I've been sick. And she was like, oh, no way. Like our guy, Alex, was also sick with food poisoning. And he was also at the event that I was at. But he had also brought home leftover sushi. And so...
Why didn't it get me?
Yeah, it's interesting. Chris ate the
'Cause I
same
ate-
leftover sushi.
Charlie, he tried to poison me, and it didn't work.
Tried to poison Emily, and she was actually very smart to not eat it, because that's what she said, is that she's averse about leftovers because of food poisoning.
That's how it came
Yeah.
about. I ate like 6 pieces of it.
Yeah.
Which maybe it just wasn't enough to like trigger it.
I have
I had no issues.
3 possible theories. One, it was the fact that like it stayed out for a little while longer after you left, and then I put it back in the fridge, and then I took it back out again and had some more.
Oh,
Could have been that.
Yes.
Also could have been maybe just some of the pieces had bacteria or virus or whatever on them, and some of them hadn't. So it was literally luck. Or another possibility that it wasn't even the sushi and it was something else that was at the event. And like maybe it wasn't even food poisoning. Maybe it was stomach flu.
Yeah, Emily also told me that sometimes food poisoning or norovirus or whatever, it doesn't come into effect until like as far as like 2 days after you eat whatever you eat.
Yeah.
Like it can take a minute to kick in.
Right.
So it could have been something different that you ate there. Yeah. Especially if someone else that went to that event got food poisoning, that would probably sell it for me that you guys ate something bad.
Yeah. But like it could have been a flu virus that was also there.
That was in the food.
Virus. I don't know. Either way, I'm feeling much better now. My energy level's still kind of picking up. So if I'm not quite as enthusiastic about some of these Copart vehicles.
This is why I don't like community food. I don't like community food. I like to have my own plate of food that came from the kitchen for me specifically. That hasn't been coughed on, sneezed on, looked at.
You wouldn't do well in a third world country, would you?
No, I would not.
Yeah, if Chris can't heat and cool his seats at the same time, he becomes cross. So drop him off in Zimbabwe and he's pretty much pulling.
Or if I don't have leather on the top of my door panels.
Or if his door panels don't all match.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is one car that from like that's been notoriously like one of the worst cars ever that you're like genuinely interested in trying? Like, would you want to drive a Lada or something like that?
Yes, I would love to drive a Lada.
Or a Yugo.
Or Yugo. Pontiac Aztec, which I know probably wouldn't drive terribly, but everyone hates it. I think the Aztec would be probably woeful to drive, actually, because it's just a big SUV that's very old.
I realized I need to get my water, but I don't want to unplug my microphone.
Oh, I can get it for you.
Be willing to?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir.
Try not to unplug the mic. So here's a question for you. Would you rather be stuck with driving a Dodge Journey for a month? Only car you can drive.
A month isn't too bad. Okay.
Or an Aztec for 6 months. Actually, wait,
Can I drive anything else?
Journey for 3 months, Aztec for a year. No, you can't drive anything else. Anytime you need to go somewhere, even if you're riding with someone, they drive that car.
Can I pick the months that I want?
Executive.
I know, but can I pick my 3 months? Is it starting right now? I'd have the Journey because it would get me through winter. And then I can drive fun stuff in summer again.
Yeah, but you're also missing out on driving a GT4 RS, a 911 Carrera T.
Okay, but I also
MC20.
would if I picked the Aztec because that goes for a year.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
I'm screwed either way. So put me out of my misery faster with the Journey.
Get the Journey done?
Yep.
Wow. 4-speed automatic. Although I don't know what the Aztec has either. So
the Aztec is cooler in every way, but it's probably horrible to drive because it's a GM product from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So
GM products, they can build such amazing cars.
the Cobalt is quite good to drive. You should drive that. Have you ever driven a Cobalt SS?
No.
Okay.
I don't even think I've driven a Cobalt.
Well, you won't like the Cobaltness because the interior is horribly cheap, like the dashboard and everything. The seats are nice. They're like really nice. I don't think they're made by Recaro. I think they're just in-house GM Performance, but I like that car quite a bit. It's fun.
How did Recaro get such a monopoly on the like sport seat game?
I don't know.
Because it's not. I mean, sorry, Recaro, if you're watching, but it can't be that hard to design a decent seat. You sit in it for a while and you're like, this is a bit
clout.
hard.
It's like Brembo. It's clout. You're like, oh, this car is Recaro's? Sweet. It's just like having like a...
So it's just
having
kind of
something designer. It's a designer.
It's
yeah.
Just,
which you don't...
It's weird that there's not like two designers that have made it. You know, it's because it's literally like
it
Recaro,
is a monopoly, Recaro,
that's
yeah.
it. And Brembo's kind of the same. But in the aftermarket world, you've got a lot of other brakes. You've got that like Blackwood or something like that.
Willwood.
Willwood.
Yeah, but on the OEM side, it's only Brembo is really all you get. Brembo, you get Recaro.
Yeah.
Whereas like sound systems, there's a pretty wide variety.
And suspension, there's a pretty wide variety.
Yeah, you got Bilstein,
lots of different shocks.
Fox,
Öhlins.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, quite a few. So it's just interesting that seats
Yeah,
and brakes.
seats and brakes.
And it's been that way for a while. I mean, it's been Recaro's
since the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Recaro more so started off like kind of like how AMG did, you know, like
as like an out.
Yeah. And that was kind of a thing too. Like you'd go get your car tuned by AMG and they'd put Recaros in it. like really cool, sophisticated Recaros that are like 36-way like power
That's
seat.
cool.
You know, like that's just the coolest thing to me. I hope one day I have an old pre-merger AMG.
Well, you like things that have a cool story to them.
I do. I really care for history and collectibility and specialness. Lore. Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because I'm the opposite.
Yeah, you don't care at all.
I care
don't
so
care
much more about like the tangible functionality of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're more minimalist than I am.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm more of a hoarder.
Does that mean you appreciate that my Chrysler minivan is at least the Walter P. Chrysler Signature Series?
Yes.
With the fake wood and everything like that?
Mm-hmm.
That at least does it for you somewhat?
Yes.
Okay.
And the white steering wheel too.
Yeah.
Which is worn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if we...
I also appreciate about the van that you bought it from a woman that had a DUI. I see. I like the story
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that you'd call it Peggy, and I like that it has kind of like a personality.
Sure.
Yeah.
Vicky was the owner.
Vicky.
Previous owner. And I was dating a Victoria at the time. So literally my van's previous owner and my girlfriend at the same time were Victoria.
You've had a lot of girlfriends.
I have had a lot of girlfriends.
I have not.
Yeah.
Well, I've only had 3.
Have you had more cars than I have? Probably.
Yeah, probably. I think I've had like 12 cars.
Have we gone through our exhaustive history yet on the podcast?
Of cars?
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah.
But like chronologically?
Do you want to go through it?
Yeah.
Okay, my first...
Let's go 1 to 1.
Okay, first car. 2009 Cobalt SS Turbo, which is just on the other side of this wall. I still have it, and I've owned it for 10 years. I've owned it just over 10 years at this point.
2002 Ford Focus SES.
I thought yours was a Taurus. Why do I always say?
Yeah, Taurus. Sorry.
Okay. Because I know you had a Focus too.
Yeah.
So you had a Taurus. Second car was a 1997 Ford Probe base model, no options, 5-speed manual, crank windows. And I owned that alongside of my Cobalt, obviously, because I still have it, and it was my winter beater.
Mm-hmm. 2004 Focus SVT.
That's excellent. I really
European
wanted
appearance package.
You know, I wanted an SVT Focus, but I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Because I only had $2,000 to spend on my winter car, and
which now you could get a clapped SVT Focus
for $2,000. I don't know.
Clapped.
Back then you couldn't. I don't know that you could now either.
Then,
yeah, because I bought that car in 2014.
Okay.
So.
All right, it's third car.
Third car was a 1990 Toyota Celica GTS, which I owned alongside. At this point, I hadn't sold anything yet. Yeah, 1990 Celica. That one was co-owned with Corbett and Dane because it was our...
Who actually had the title?
Me.
Yeah, okay. My third car was a 2005 Toyota Prius. I always forget if it's a 5 or 6. I've owned a lot of 05, 06 cars.
Yeah,
so they've kind of run together, but I think that was a 5.
Okay.
That got shipped to Cambodia.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you started the podcast about that.
Yeah.
So next for me, I sold the Probe and the Celica, kept the Cobalt, and got a 2003 Lexus IS300 5-speed manual, which I also still have on the other side of that wall.
Yeah. That would be kind of cool if we did the podcast in the garage.
That would be cool. It'd just be very
background was
echoey.
the car. Yeah, it'd be awful. My fourth car was a 2006 Infiniti M35X, which I've talked about exhaustively. That car was so nice. I've owned a lot of cars with fake wood. I am a wood grain enthusiast.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did I have next? Oh, my...
This is where it starts to get a little confusing.
Yeah, I know. Me too. My next one was a 1989 BMW 735 IL.
That's pretty cool. So you and I both went to big luxury cars at that point.
That's the car I'd buy back. If I could buy any of my cars back, it would be that E32.
It might be my Infiniti for me too. I mean, my Focus... I would like to buy my Focus back in the condition that it was in when I sold it.
It had a salvage title and everything too.
Right, but I would not want to buy it back after the owner who bought it from me just beat the shit.
Does it exist still? You think it's been crushed?
I don't know. We should have Stu pull a Carfax on it at some point.
I want him to pull a Carfax on my 7 Series too.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Okay, your turn.
Oh, well, I was going to say before I bought the Infiniti, I had put a deposit down on an 06 Audi A6 with beautiful white.
You would have been a different man if you bought that car.
3.2 V6, tan interior. Oh, I loved how it drove. That's still one of my favorite cars. I think that's one of the most beautiful cars ever made, was that generation A6.
The C6 A6. Yeah.
It kind of looks like a Bugatti Veyron. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but the headlights are similar.
Yeah, and the grille shape.
Which technically the Bugatti was styled after the Audi. So, but...
Probably has like the same headlights.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a
because it's an
A
Audi.
Vag product.
Right. It is a Vag. But I took my deposit off because I was looking up ownership costs and kind of got realistic with myself. And I was like, look,
timing. You got to pull the motor.
I mean, even just, I don't know about it with that car because it was a timing belt. I don't know if you had to pull the motor on that.
That had a belt?
I think the 3.2 had a belt and the
Interesting.
4.2 had a chain.
Okay.
Yeah. But even an oil change, and obviously you don't have to do it at the dealer, but an oil change at an Audi dealer costs like $130 at that time, whereas an oil change at the Infiniti dealer, full service inspection, they even gave you a loaner vehicle. For my 230,000 mile Infiniti that some punk college kid bought, they still gave me a brand new loaner vehicle at the Infiniti dealer, and it cost like $65 for the oil change, for like a full synthetic oil change and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, the Infiniti of Ann Arbor did me really well with that car. They always treated me, even though I was this silly kid and stuff, they treated me professionally. And like, you know, I had a QX60 at one point. I had a Q50 loaner car. Like, they were a good deal. They let me like come into the shop and like when they had the car up and look at it underneath and everything. Wow. So I was treated really well by my Infiniti dealer, and that helped push me that way.
I had similar experience at the Lexus dealer as a punk college kid. I went
in
in
Midland?
Lexus of Ann Arbor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went in to get a key made because when I bought the car, it only came with one key, so I wanted to have two keys for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got a key made, and they like treated me like royalty.
So good, and that is honestly how you earn customers.
Yeah, and they washed my car.
They would do that.
They hand washed it.
Well, I don't know if they hand washed mine, but still,
okay.
Yeah. I mean,
well, the car looked great. They like put tire shine on it, and I was like, "Geez."
I mean, that they understand that is how you win customers for a long time.
No, I left them a great review. I was like, "Oh yeah, they did great."
Yeah. All right, so that is Infiniti. Then I purchased my 2001 Porsche Boxster S.
Oh yeah.
The looking of cars is more than half the fun than from the buying. But I was so tight between it was Boxster or Z4. Boxster or Z4. I watched every single review, read every single article, and compare between those two cars. And I was like, should I get an M Roadster, which I think would have been pretty sick, like the Z4M.
Oh, the Z4M, yeah.
Yeah. That would have been pretty cool. But I test drove a 3.0 SI, which was the highest output non-M version of the Z4, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the interior. It felt claustrophobic. The motor didn't give me the fizz. And I bought the Boxster like the next day. I think the Z4 looks a lot prettier, but gosh, that Boxster, just the way that car drives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I have next? Let me pull out my VinWiki. I
need to get on VinWiki.
I think my next one was my 1996 Mazda MX-5 Miata, but I don't know. So I'm going to confirm that. I think it was the Miata.
I didn't own a Miata. Technically, my father did, but after my Focus SVT, we did own a Miata in the family, and I drove that quite a bit.
Ah, yes. Yeah, it was my Miata.
Nathan actually, as like an allegedly very under 16-year-old driver, like barely could see over the wheel that Miata, like learned how to drive stick driving that car. Oh. Like, yeah, we would drive it through like private roads up north and everything like that, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, so I bought this Miata from an old man, as you should when you're buying a Miata.
Cool. We bought our Miata from an old man as well.
I don't know. I mean, I sold my 7 and I just wanted polar opposite. And I was like, I need a Miata. Was set up actually to go buy a white 93 Miata, so NA6. Okay. And then the day before I was going to go look at it, he sold it.
Oh, what a douchebag.
Yeah, well, I mean...
You didn't have like a reserve?
I didn't like pay. I didn't give him a deposit or anything. I was just going to go look at it. So then I was like, dang it. I had my hopes up to get a Miata. So then I went on Craigslist and found a 96 red NA8 in Ohio, I think, or Indiana. No, it was in Indiana. And horrible pictures. It looked like someone put grease on their thumb and smeared it over their camera lens. And there were only 2 photos, I think, of the car, front and back. And I'm like, okay. The guy was asking $3,500 or $4,000 or something for it. And I'm like, okay, at the time, I'm like, that's a little pricey. Now that would be a steal. But at the time I was like, okay, it's a little pricey. So I called the number. He's just an old guy. He's like, yeah, come down and see it. So next day, went down with envelope of cash, showed up. The car was mint, no rust. Interior was perfect. He had seat covers on it. I took the seat covers off and the seats were like mint underneath. The paint was nice. It had been in an accident.
He had saved it for the next guy.
Yes, exactly. It had been in a minor accident. Still had a clean title, but one of the fenders was just ever so slightly a different shade of red.
And Chris can tell those sort of things. I could own the car for 3 years and would never
You
have known.
absolutely would not have noticed, because it wasn't really noticeable. And it was a great car. It had all the right options. It had cloth. They didn't all have cloth. It had cloth, but it had power windows and a limited slip, which was like perfect spec.
AC?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it was great. The top was in great shape.
What did you do with that car?
I sold it. I don't know. And the kid I sold it to totaled it.
Of all the cars that you've kept.
I know.
I mean, I know your Cobalt has like nostalgia and everything. It's your first car and everything. The Lexus cool. And
Oh,
stuff,
we'll
but,
get
like,
to why. Well, I had to sell it. I didn't have any money. And I had my Cobalt and my IS300, and I'm like, well, I don't want to sell either of these.
Sold the IS.
So I sold because the IS is worth way more than it would have been in 2000.
So it's Miata.
I know, but the IS is worth probably more than it would have been back then.
Either way, the Miata.
I should have kept the Miata.
Yeah.
Well, no, what I should have done was threw snow tires on the Miata and just driven it through winter.
Yeah.
Although I might have died. Might have
not been here to tell you about it.
So
that was your
Miata. I sold it, and the kid I sold it to totaled it, but then he rebuilt it, and now it's like mint green and slammed.
This. Yeah.
It looks okay. I mean, he rebuilt it, so it's out there still.
Okay. So after I got the Boxster, I knew that I didn't have any reason to have a coupe, or rather a Roadster and a sedan. So I had to part ways with the Infiniti. It was sad because I liked that car quite a bit, put a lot of miles on it. It's a great car. But I sold it and got my 2006 Chrysler Town and Country that we just started talking about, Peggy.
For $900?
No, no, $750. Talked her down from $1,000. The bargaining process was hilarious because I got there and the rear window was shattered out. And
was there a trash bag over it?
It was not even just trash bag, but like a proper like window cover bag, like that.
They make
like,
window cover bags.
I think so. Like something.
Oh,
like a tarp,
crash wrap.
Yeah, like it's like a filmy sort of translucent material that it's pretty thick, so like it could actually withstand weather and everything. Right. Yeah, and it had a lot of issues. Like the heat didn't work, but it was like it wouldn't work on like 1, 2, or 3. Oh, that's good. 1, 2, or 3, but it would work on 4 sort of thing.
Oh, right.
And so I knew that it was just a little like transistor module that just needed to be popped in, popped out, and it would work fine. But like I was like, well, since the heat doesn't work and everything like that, I was like, I mean, she'd only asking $1,000 on Craigslist, so I was like, I thought I was gonna lowball her at $750, and she'd counter at like $9 or something. I'd pay whatever at that point. And I was like, how about like $750? And she's like, yeah, okay. And I was like,
should have gone 500.
Yeah. But either way, I felt so bad in some ways because I had showed up there in my Boxster to like buy it and everything. So I told her, I went out with my father to pick it up. I told her it was for my little brother.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, and you still have it.
I still have it. I've owned that car longer than any other car and still own it. Still going strong.
What year did you buy it? 2019?
No,
18?
it would have been 2017.
Whoa.
I believe. Yeah.
Wow. So you've owned that almost as long as I've owned my IS300.
Mm-hmm.
I bought that in 2016.
Yeah. I think it was 27 days of possibility. I think it would have October of 2017. I think is when.
Wow.
Yeah, because I've got my house in 2018, and I remember having to replace a strut on the van first day I bought my house.
Nice.
Yep.
That's fun.
All right. So
good core memory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After the Miata, I bought a 2007 BMW 328xi, which was the worst car I've ever owned.
A lot of hill descent controlling on that car, right?
What?
A lot of hill descent control.
It did have hill descent control. And this isn't to say all E90s are bad. Most of them are. But this one was just a pile of garbage.
Was it a gray interior?
No, it was it was a decent spec. It was, I think they called it space gray or something. It was gray and it had black interior and it was a sport pack car. So it had sport seats, sport steering wheel, sport wheels. But it was an automatic.
Wait, so you sold the Miata
to get an E90, an X-Drive E90. Yeah. Not my best.
Yeah, we've all had our bad moments.
But you got to learn somehow. I drove, you're going to cringe even more. I drove down to Kentucky for this car.
Oof.
Because I had to have a sport pack because
sporty.
I wanted the steering wheel. I didn't like the steering wheel on the non-sport car or the seats. The seats and steering wheel were ugly.
Now you can just swap out the steering wheel because you're a steering wheel
I know.
enthusiast.
Well, I wanted the sport pack And the only one I could find that was in my price range was in Kentucky at a dealership. It was at a buy here, pay here dealership, like you did with your Infiniti.
Yeah.
I didn't finance it. I just paid cash for it. But it was like $6,000 or something out the door. 6,300 out the door, I want to say, which was a great deal. I mean,
Although I paid less for my Infiniti, and it was a higher trim. Well, higher model.
Right. I think KBB on the car was like 7,600. So I was like, I'm getting a great deal.
How many miles were on it?
103,000.
That's why I had like 170 on my Infiniti.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't have any miles on it.
Which compare Infiniti to BMW is pretty comparable.
They were just, I wasn't thorough enough. I drove down to Kentucky. I just wanted to look at the car, get it over with. Home. And
it's not like you were not going to buy the car. You kind of put yourself in a position.
And there was some things I didn't observe, like the headlight switch was broken, all the vent tabs were broken off. The car badly needed front struts. It was like the whole front end was bouncing really bad. And
did you do front struts?
It was leaking oil terribly.
Have them done?
No, I never did struts. I drove on bouncy front end the whole time. I didn't own that car very long. I owned it for less than a year. And it was leaking oil terribly, like pissing oil. Like I've never owned another car that leaked oil, and it actually wasn't the car's fault. Someone had installed a camshaft position sensor wrong. They like cross-threaded it into the head, so there was just enough of a gap to where every time you'd turn the car off and the oil would drain back down into the pan, when it would pass through wherever it was passing through, it would drip, 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 drip. So it wouldn't leak while it was running, but as soon as you shut the car off, you could poke your head under the car and you could watch the oil drip out. That's how much oil was leaking.
Wow.
It was horrible. So after I got that new, I could just put a new sensor in it and it was fine after that. But there were just other like bad things with that car. Like once it warmed up, it would shift really hard. That's the 6-speed auto in that car was garbage. It would shift really hard, intermittent check engine light, because the Vanos would always freak out, like the variable valve timing, when it would be idling and it would idle up like randomly and then idle back down. And the engine oil level sensor would like go in and out from working, and you'd get this error message on the iDrive. And then one of the TPMS sensors was bad, so you'd get an error message on the cluster screen, and the iDrive. It would go bling, and it would you'd be locked out of everything until you closed out of it all. That car was
just normal E90 ownership.
Dude, that car was.
I don't know anyone who's owned an E90 and was just like, yeah, it was a good car, and then I got rid of it, unless it was new.
Yeah, that car was just such a pile of crap. But you know what? I don't think I lost money on it. I think I lost like $500.
Well, the money you put into like repairing,
which is what I mean.
Yeah,
I think I lost like $500 total. Which to drive a car for winter, I'd pay $500 to drive a car through winter. And the only reason that I got off so well is I got lucky, because I had the car on Craigslist for $6,500, which I was going to be losing like $1,000, I think, with everything I put in, or like $1,300 or something. And I was like, whatever, I just want to get rid of it. And a friend of a friend who at the time was driving a 98 Malibu clapped thing that he inherited from his grandmother really wanted a new car. And I'm like, here it is. It's sorted enough to where it'll be a fine car for you. You'll have a couple little annoyances here and there, but I had fixed mostly everything.
Sure.
It needed struts and like that was it. Otherwise I had done everything. And he was like, okay. And he said, well, I can't do 6,500, but I can do 6. And I was like, you know what?
Sure.
$6,000. He's like, wait, and I'll give you my Malibu. And I was like, oh, okay. Like this is a running driving car, like I can probably sell it for like $1,000.
Worst case, scrap it.
Worst case, scrap it and get $300. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So he wrote me a check, $6,000, gave me the title and keys to his Malibu. I didn't even move the Malibu from his apartment complex. I left it parked. I never even drove it. Went to his apartment complex, took photos of it, and listed it up on Facebook Marketplace for $1,300 or something. And some girl came and gave me $900 for it.
Wow.
So I actually got $400 more than my asking price.
That's pretty cool.
For the E90, and I think I only lost $500.
Nice, very nice.
So that worked out. I was like counting my blessings there.
Are we going to count that Malibu as a car you've owned?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah, title was in my name.
All right.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to put the title on my name, and then he freaking went and signed it and put my name on it and
You're
stuff.
going to title jump.
Allegedly. But Andy wrote $1,000 on the freaking title. I was like, dude, you're killing me.
That's $60 wasted.
So it was $60 I had to spend, but whatever.
You wrote $1,000 on the Malibu title?
Yes.
You only sold it for $900. $900. Yeah, that's
Well, that
kinda
was
crap.
before I had sold
I know,
it.
but
'Cause
like, how much did he expect?
he valued it at
At
1,000. So he was like,
whatever.
1,000, whatever.
Okay. You
Whatever.
still ended up making money.
I still
off of it. Yeah,
like, you know, made
Yeah, it worked
out
out.
made out very much better than I thought I would on that deal.
Sure.
And then he totaled it. He totaled the E90.
Maybe he couldn't handle it with the struts, bouncing all around.
He rear-ended someone on the highway. Same with my Miata. They rear-ended someone on the highway.
Wow.
I don't know what it is with these cars I sell and people just total them.
First.
But that E90 was.
Hmm.
I hope no one fixed that car. It needed to just get parted out and scrapped.
Sent it to Cambodia.
Yeah, it probably did go somewhere.
Yeah.
It was on
Middle
Copart.
East.
I watched it on Copart.
So when I had the Boxster and the van, there was a colleague of mine at Car and Driver, Nate Petrulia, if you're listening. He and I kind of started at Car and Driver right around the same time, sort of worked up in different roles and stuff. And then he went over to Road and Track, which was working with Car and Driver at the same time, kind of the same building owned by the same parent company.
Right.
And then Road and Track pulled a sneaky, and it's the parent company. It wasn't Road and Track's fault. It's the parent company. Pretty much fired everyone at Road and Track and kept Nate and one other person, or offered Nate. They were pretty much like, if you want to keep your job, you got to move to New York. And Nate was like, I'm not doing that. I got a girlfriend and family and everything like that. So he was really bummed. But he owned a 1987 Porsche 924S.
Ah, yes.
Manual.
Very good. Ooh.
Red, guards red and everything. And it had been sitting for a while. It was kind of a cool car, but it had been sitting, and he had just recently purchased a first-gen Lexus LS400 as his daily.
Brilliant car.
Yep. And he was like, I just need to get rid of this Porsche. I need money. I want it gone. It didn't really need much. But he's like, I just want it off my hands. And I was kind of like, praise the Lord, was doing pretty well at that time. I had started Road Test Editor, was making decent money and everything, and didn't have a wife, so had money around.
Yeah.
And
sorry, Alyssa.
Yep. And so I was just kind of jokingly, whatever. I was like, I'll just give you $3,500 for it. Just take it now. And he's like, seriously? And I was like, I mean, I was kind of joking, but yeah, sure. And he was like, okay, cool. And like that day, he just signed over the title. And I was like, I guess I own 2 Porsches now. So it's kind of cool. I had a red one and a blue one. I can bring up some photos somewhere or something like that. It was really
had 2 Porsches. I never knew that overlapped.
Yeah.
I guess.
I have one Snapchat story somewhere or whatever that was like 1 Porsche, 2 Porsche, red Porsche, blue Porsche. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I had fun with that. And if I didn't already own the Boxster, I probably would have held on to the 924S because those cars were very slow. It was 1980s.
Did it have a van engine?
No, it was just like a 1 point. Forgive me, Porsche
van
enthusiasts, but it was a 4-cylinder of sorts that revved out, but it just wasn't very quick.
Yeah.
It wasn't very high. I mean, at least it was the S. So it had the 944 body, and it was a later model year. So, I mean, it had good things about it. It was manual and stuff. But
phone dial wheels?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
And I might as well bring up a photo of it here.
And let me figure out what I owned next after the E90 because
Okay.
I'm forgetting.
Oh,
I got a good one after. Or wait.
Hopefully we don't pass
What did I
through
own
any bad photos that I need to change out here. Red car. Got a lot of red cars.
I actually owned no extra car for a while because I moved to Chicago for a few months.
Why isn't this coming up? Ooh, Chris, look at some of these cars. I guess I gotta switch this over to screen.
Orange BMW.
Yeah.
Oh, an
M3.
AMG GT. Nice.
This was my dad's Focus. Yeah, it was Focus Titanium. This was the natural state of our Alpha coming from the dealer. This was this awesome.
Oh, it's a GTR.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh, next to Peggy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun morning. This is when
Did
the
you leave that in
HST
your
was new.
driveway?
No, I parked it inside, of course. This was our beautiful Ram long-termer we had at Car and Driver. We custom spec'd this one out. Had like the long bed, limited.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very good. That's Nathan's snowmobile. But it doesn't seem
What's up with that fire orange F30 or F80 M3?
This is TC Klein's car, or was TC Klein's car. He's a BMW tuner. Oh, and I've told you about this
Aston
car, Chris.
behind it?
Yes, that's a press car. And then this is my buddy, the one I'm
Saturn
trying to
Sky.
get to work on the Keone's S10. This is his Saturn Sky Redline.
Same motor as my Cobalt.
Mm-hmm. Green with
Oh,
a
and there's your
brown top.
Boxster.
You're right. Yeah, good catch. Mm-hmm.
I know a twist wheel when I see one.
This is Tony Swan's house, the late great Tony Swan.
Oh.
This is cool garage, and then the race car, and that's Tony right there. Our internet loads it up. There we go. This is our E46 race car that we Lemons drove. This is a proper Lemons car, Chris.
Yeah, that is a proper Lemons car. It looks like a cheater Lemons car.
It was 100% a cheater Lemons car.
Yeah.
None of these are my Porsche though. So
okay, well, while you do that, we can talk
Okay.
about what I had next.
Wait, but we're off now because I have to do 2 because you just did 2.
No, you did 2 before I did 1.
No, you did your E90.
Correct.
And the Malibu.
Oh, true. Well, the Malibu, okay. The Malibu and the E90 are a combo.
Well,
You've got a very long hair hanging off of your chin.
is it an Alyssa hair?
It's an Alyssa hair, yeah. You want me to get it?
No, it's not bothering me. I think it's going to bother the viewers.
They probably won't be able to see it. I think you got it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Bothering Chris.
Yeah, more so bothering me.
So right after I got let go from Car and Driver, I did what any good car enthusiast would do and bought a car. Because I was like, I'm going to have all this time on my hands because I don't have a job. So I went on Copart and purchased a 2006 Lexus LS 430. The car was nice. I really wanted it to work out well, but it had been hit quite hard in the kind of the door and fender area, the rear door and fender
And in
area.
typical Charlie fashion, you went, oh, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
I can fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of hammering outside in front of my house, but
The neighbors
I
love
did
that.
get it much better and didn't end up losing any significant amount of money on the car, but didn't turn into the daily driver that I was kind of.
Wasn't it kind of clapped before it was crashed?
It was Detroit spec, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Flint spec. I got it from Flint.
From Flint?
Yeah.
All the best Copart cars come from Flint, as we know.
Mm-hmm. So now you can go.
Okay. So actually, after the E90, I just held on, retained the Cobalt and the IS300. And then my next car after that was a 2006 Porsche Cayman S. That was when the Porsche came in 2019.
Would you say that's your favorite?
Oh yeah,
favorite car?
Yeah. That was kind of a long build. I have always wanted a 987 Cayman S, and I had been looking all of 2019 for one. Really started looking during the summer. I had a good amount of money saved up for a down payment because I was gonna try and finance it through my grandfather because I was like, no bank's gonna approve me for one as a 20-year-old. Charlie's getting a phone call.
Oh, it's Chris Amos.
Oh,
Chris, you're live on the Daily Motor Podcast.
Oh, let me give you a call back later.
All right.
Fine.
I can.
Childcare.
I'll shoot you a call when I'm done.
Okay, sounds good. See ya.
Yep. Bye.
words of the Topher. Everyone.
Mhm.
So anyways, I'm like, okay, well, I'll get a loan from my grandpa to get this car, and I found the perfect spec car. I was very set on not having sand beige interior, but I really wanted a red. That's a 4x4 squared.
Yeah, can I do a quick interruption here of your story? Probably one of the most ridiculous press cars.
Oh, you drove that?
Yeah, that was a press vehicle that we had at Car and
I
Driver.
like the thing next to it better.
Well, which way? This
The
one?
S-Class, sorry.
Yeah.
S-Class coupe.
No, this was the most bonkers color.
It looks like a wrap.
No.
Is it matte?
That's a matte Mercedes
It's
color.
matte red?
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't make that anymore. No.
I don't think so.
No, because the G-Wagon changed
Right.
body styles.
Yeah. Continue.
Okay. So anyways, long story short, it was in Virginia. It was my perfect spec. Flew out, bought it, drove back. My grandpa ended up just helping me with it. He didn't let me pay him back, so he helped me with the purchase of that car, which I'm
Very nice.
forever grateful. Yeah, thank you. Help me have a Cayman S debt free.
Yeah.
Which is freaking awesome as a 20-year-old. So drove that car, actually dailied that car in college for 3-4 months until the weather got bad. But yeah, coolest thing ever. The scariest thing for me though was flying to Virginia with that big of a cashier's check in my backpack.
Yeah, which, I mean, at least with a cashier's check, like the whole idea is that it can only be used by one person.
I know,
right?
but the lady at the bank, I went there and I took the cash out to buy the car, which is the most cash I've ever taken out ever.
Mhm.
And I was like, so what happens if I lose this? And she was like, don't lose it. And I was like, okay.
You sure she wasn't doing that just like jokingly?
I mean,
But kind of messing with you?
I was like, well,
Don't lose it.
she was like, this is cash. And I was like, okay, I won't lose it. And I didn't lose it, obviously. But yeah, so gave the guy the check, drove the car back from Virginia, which was actually terrifying because part of the drive was in the dark in the mountains under pouring rain.
The tires good?
Yeah, they were new Pilot Super Sports.
Okay.
Newish. I think they're like 2014 date codes or 2016 date codes or something.
Gotcha.
So yeah, no, it was fine. I didn't lose any traction or anything, but it was scary because the car you're not used to, mid-engine. I'd never driven a mid-engine. Well, I had driven a couple, but not for long term. So, but I made it back. Just did it all in a day. Yeah, it was wild.
Nice.
It was so fun though.
I'll have that car, and I still haven't driven it.
Yeah, you'll have to drive it this year. Yeah, I still have that car as well because as you can see, I don't sell anything ever. So,
yeah. Which in some ways we've said is a good thing.
Yeah, well, the Cayman is worth like probably $8,000 more than I paid for it. So, yeah.
After the LS, this is where it's going to start to get. I have to keep things straight. So I would have had that, and then my van, and then I kind of linked up with Amos. So I had van and the Boxster, and it would have been van and Boxster for a while, and then
you sold the Boxster like right before I met you.
Okay,
I think.
All right,
which was 2020.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, because 2017 to 2020, it was my first car loan, and I financed it through a credit union.
The Boxster.
Yep, and had a pretty low interest rate, and I was like, I'll just see what because I was kind of like you. I was like, I didn't want to have a loan for a long time, and I was like, well, let me see what it's like, and it worked out very well. I paid the whole thing off, and
nice.
Then sold it right after I'd paid it off. But I sold that because I had gotten a motorcycle, a 2012 Kawasaki Ninja. That's what it was. I traded the red Porsche for a motorcycle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And God, that guy was a degen. He showed up, met him in a parking lot at East Lansing off of MSU's campus. And he shows up on this. He had to drive like 45 minutes down a highway to get there with flip-flops on, shorts and a t-shirt, with his girlfriend on the back who also had flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt.
Were they wearing helmets?
I do think they at least had helmets on.
That's something, I guess.
But on this, it's not exactly a crotch rocket, but it's a sport bike. To a layman, they just call it a crotch rocket, but it's a sport, not a super sport. And I was like, oh, so I know this bike's been treated well because look at the type of person who owns it. But it was my first motorcycle. I knew nothing about bikes other than having driven a bike that my dad had owned, a dirt bike in high school and stuff. But I just knew I wanted to get into bikes and rode this motorcycle home with no endorsement or anything. And
good. Allegedly. If you're
the Federales or Jocelyn Benson.
Jocelyn Benson. Thank you. I'm like, what's her name?
I did at least have gear though. I was like, I knew I needed to pick up gear. So it was my buddy John, who I'm still friends with. I bought some gear from him and got a helmet from actually Tony Swan. After he passed away, his wife gave me his motorcycle helmet and everything. So I had gear to ride, but I just kind of took back roads and made it easy. But it was a cool learning experience. And God, there was this obnoxiously loud exhaust on there. In fact, it's the exact same bike and exhaust that Keone, our buddy at Cap's Garage, has. And it's so loud. I hated it. But it was...
Why'd you sell that? Because it was too degen for you?
Yes. And it didn't have ABS. And ABS is a pretty important feature for safety of bikes.
Yeah.
So I wanted a bike with ABS. And it had like a weird like inconsistency with the motor. It was just, I needed to start fresh. I needed a cleaner slate than that bike. That was a good deal for the trade I got. But we're not here to do bikes. I just was thinking through how everything worked. Because the reason I ended up deciding to sell the Boxster was because the first year that I put more miles on the motorcycle than the Porsche, I was like, I'm not like Chris who will just keep something because I'm like, I just think it's cool. Like Boxster is
I appreciate things for the art aspect too.
Yeah. And the Boxster was pretty, but
I'll always want to also my mindset with the Cayman is like I'll always want to have a 987. Like I'll never not want a 987 because it's like one of my favorite Porsches. I'm like, I'm always going to want one, and this one is the one that I want because it's guards red, natural brown, Carrera sport wheels. It's exactly the spec that I would want, and I've never seen another one like that. Like if I sell this car, I'll have to just buy it back someday. So it's like,
see, and Chris has enjoyment from the ownership. I don't. Ownership to me is stressful. I
it's still
I
stressful.
enjoy the using.
It's still stressful.
So if I'm not using a thing, I want it gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel that. I just have too much sentimental. The Porsche is sentimental plus what I just explained. And then the Cobalt is sentimental because it's my first car. And the Lexus is just another car that I'll just always want in the collection. So.
Yeah. If I were in your position, I would keep the Porsche because it's a genuinely great spec and car. And
they'll never make
very
anything
unique.
like it.
All those things. And you do, like every time you do drive it, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And I would only keep one of either the Lexus or the Cobalt.
Understandable. I was very close to selling the Lexus in 2018.
Okay.
I sent it off to my buddy Jake and I said, fix everything that it needs. It needed a couple of little things. I'm like, fix everything it needs because I'm selling it. I'm like, I'm going to get rid of it because I wanted to buy an E60 M5. But I'm glad I didn't do that.
Wow. I too have wanted to buy E60s.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I can probably get 10 grand for the Lexus. I had some savings. I'm like, I'll go spend 18,000 on a shitty E60 M5 and make V10 noises. And I'm so glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I was close, but I kept my Lexus instead, which was smart.
You would have at least gotten a manual though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No SMG. It would have had to have been a manual.
I still, at some point,
but they were still dirt cheap. They were like, you could get like a manual one for like 18, 19 grand back then.
Yeah.
Now you can't anymore, but
at some point in my life, I'll own an M6 convertible manual.
Manual V10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back when they were in a few years when we have disposable income.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our incomes are going to go up at the same rate that the cars appreciate, so we'll never be able to get one.
We'll never be able to get them. That's so sad. Pain.
Yeah. So anyway, so I sold the Boxster, and I guess it wouldn't have been until
the Tesla, right? Wasn't it the Tesla?
Because Alyssa moved in with me, and she had her Passat.
Yeah.
And then I had the Boxster was gone, so Alyssa could put the Porsche or the Volkswagen in the garage, and it would have been a Tesla Model Y, a 2021 Tesla Model Y standard range that Chris Amos and I had kind of talked on and off, like we should get a Tesla at some point. One of us should, so that we can shoot videos because Tesla doesn't have press cars.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the Model 3 is cheaper, but the Model Y would make more sense because it was like a new model at that time. And then the standard range car dropped, and it was like $9 grand cheaper than the long range car. And I was like, that's a sign. Let's do it. So I went on and ordered it. And again, bless our grandparents. My grandmother was the one who financed that car for me. She might not want that public, but don't remember that, anyone. Don't tell her.
Yeah.
And yeah, she set us up, with some interest and everything, but like a proper, because it was like, I think I hit up UMCU and they didn't want to finance that much or something like that. Like they didn't approve me. So yeah, that worked out really well because I ended up, when we did sell it, we made 17 grand. After driving it for 20,000 miles. After
insane.
tax, title, and fees, it was 14
Did you
grand.
kick back some of that to your grandma?
No. Which
she charged you interest.
Yeah,
so
and she was just happy that it worked out. Like, she's just like, because
it
it was obviously a bold call to be like, hey, we're this unmarried, like 25-year-old couple.
You sold that car for $57,000? Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I didn't even have to like list.
And you sold it to a dealer, right? So they probably sold it.
It was a middleman guy.
So they probably sold it for 60. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't even have the original wheels on it.
No. Which they were better this way.
That's true. It rode better. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's me.
Whew. Okay. After the Porsche, which I still have, I bought a 2003 Lexus GS 300 from an old man with a glue factory.
Glue factory.
It's got a good story. It was October in Midland, Michigan, and it started snowing, and I was like, crap, I have one car up here, and it's a Porsche on Michelin Pilot Super Sports, so I can't drive.
I love how it wasn't until it got snowing that
It was October. Usually it doesn't snow in October. And I'm like, okay, well...
Better go buy a Miata.
I know, we had a blizzard in Midland, so I'm like, all right, I'm like going through Marketplace. I'm like, I got to buy something this week, so whatever I can find for like $3 grand, I'll just buy it. And I came across this GS 300 that I had actually been watching for a little bit, admittedly, because the guy had it listed for $6 grand. Then he lowered it to 5. Then he lowered it to 4. Then he lowered it
chunks.
Then he lowered it to 3,500. And I was like, okay, 3,500, I can probably get him down to $3,000, like whatever. So it was only like 20 minutes from school. So myself, Matthew, our friend Matthew, and my roommate at the time, Katie, went out to go see the car. And it was at this glue factory. The gentleman that owned the car stored it indoors. He didn't drive in the winter. It was incredibly clean. And he manufactured glue to seal windows of jets.
That's kind of
cool.
cool.
Airplanes. He gave us a tour of his glue factory. And he was like, here, sniff this glue. And we're like, okay.
It's a little strange.
He was a nice guy. His name was Willis.
Willis.
And yeah, it was super cool guy. Great experience. Anyways, I only brought $3,000 cash with me because I'm like, I'm not spending more than $3,000 on a winter car. I'm like, I'd like $3,000 is my absolute top. So I show up, drive the car. It drives great. Everything's good on it. And I'm like, all right, pull out my envelope, showed it to him. I'm like, I got $3,000 for you. And he's like, oh man. He's like, well, to be honest with you, I'm giving my son the money from this car so he can buy a car. And I promised him I'd get him at least $3,200. He's like, I cannot take less than $3,200. And I'm like, all right, man, well, I can't buy it today then because I'm like, I guess I'll do 32, but I've only got 3 on me. And my roommate, Katie, goes, I've got $200 in my wallet. And I was like, oh my God. So I bought it.
Very nice.
Yeah, Katie helped me get the car.
Thank you,
And
Katie.
then obviously I paid her back the next day.
Sure,
but
sure. And you liked that car, didn't you?
I loved that car. It was great. It had a couple issues though. Surprisingly though. Very specific issues.
Is it surprising in a $3,000 car?
Well, it's a Lexus GS 300, of course.
I've
It's
never have an
surprising.
issue.
Yeah. Well, it had 170K on it when I bought it. Or
Like my
I think
Infiniti.
170. Yeah. Unbelievably mint. This car was like perfect inside.
Did he say he owned it for a while or something?
Yeah. He bought it. I think he bought it with 80,000 on it. His wife drove the shit out of it. It was his wife's car, but they didn't drive it in winter. So it had no rust. And funny enough, the day I drove it home, the temp gauge was like creeping up. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Turned out it just needed a thermostat, and Willis paid for it.
Did he really?
I texted him and I said, hey, this car is like running really hot. Like, do you know anything about that? And he was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like, I would never try and scam somebody. He's like, bring me the car back and I'll fix it. And I was like, all right. So I drove it back to him and he fixed it.
Did he do it himself or take it to like
He took it to a shop and they fixed it.
Wow. That's
just needed a
pretty
thermostat.
gangster.
Dude, I'm telling you, I had a great experience with this guy. He was like super, he was just
5
like,
stars.
He was just like somebody's dad,
Yeah.
like he didn't want to, and I mean, I'm just a young kid. He's like, oh man, I'd never try and screw you out of anything.
That's nice.
So, yeah. So he fixed it for me. And then it was great for a while until the rear differential went.
Ooh.
The differential went, which actually wasn't too expensive to fix. I bought one from LKQ, from an 80,000 mile car. It was like $100, and then I paid my buddy like 150 to put it in. So $250, new diff.
Yeah.
And that was the only problems I ever had with that car.
Okay.
Actually, that's not true. At the end of owning it, the check engine light came on and it needed cats. So then I sold it for more than I paid for it. Yeah. Sold it for $4,000, which I think netted me like a $200 profit after the work I had put into it.
See, that's such a car guy way to look at things because obviously Chris isn't factoring in like sales tax or like, license plate fees or windshield wipers or anything like that. But like, I made
I bought it for $3,200. I guess the only money I put into it was the diff because I didn't pay for the thermostat and I didn't fix the cats.
Right. Yeah.
So I think I actually did count my tax and title because that was like $500. Maybe I just broke even. I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever. I didn't lose catastrophic amounts of money on it. I just about broke even. And that car showed up just recently, actually, earlier this year on Facebook Marketplace for $1,000.
How do you know?
I just know that it was my car. I know it was my car. I promise you.
Okay.
It was on Marketplace for $1,000. Passenger mirror was missing. Driver's side mirror was hanging off. One of the tires was flat. And it had no keys. No keys.
So it may have been acquired by someone.
It was probably stolen. Yeah, probably.
Without their consent.
Yeah, and then it was listed up for a day and then it vanished. It wasn't even marked as sold. The listing was totally deleted.
Yeah.
So who knows what happened to that car? But every time I sell cars, they fall into the wrong hands. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know what happens to them, but
right.
Someone busted both mirrors off and lost the keys.
Joyroaded a bit. After the Tesla,
this whole podcast, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be its own breakout episode, which we'll talk to you about after this.
Okay.
after the Tesla, we really liked the Tesla, but it just didn't make sense. I mean, the whole point of buying it was for views and for content and everything. We did a lot of content on that car, a lot of videos, and when the value just kept creeping up more and more and more.
I liked that Tesla. I liked driving it.
Yeah, I did too. And the value just kept creeping up more and more. And it was a little frustrating how you could realistically only get about 180 miles of range out of it. So like if we wanted to go do a weekend trip, like it wasn't impossible. It just took longer. It took more planning.
Right.
I mean, one thing if it were like a 300-mile car, or even if it could get its 240-mile.
What is the
estimated
long range will I
right now.
get realistically? Like 220?
Like 240, 260.
240.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's estimated as like 310 or something.
Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew. But
Toasty.
yeah, it is getting a little warm. It's probably because that you can open that door a little if you want. So we sold the Tesla, and we purchased off of my mother a 2013 Volvo S60 T6 all-wheel drive.
I thought that was for Nathan.
That was Nathan's car.
Oh.
We bought it from them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we needed a car when we sold the Tesla. Because Peggy was not exactly an Alyssa driving spec.
Right.
Yeah, not up to her standards. So we had that, and we literally only owned it for like 2 months.
And then you sold it, and the lady blew the tire on Michigan Avenue.
No, on the highway.
Oh yeah,
On
on 94.
off-ramp.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, after GS,
After the GS,
you actually might beat me because we're getting.
yeah, I've still
I'm
got
getting
I've
pretty
still got a
close.
lot to go.
Mhm.
After the GS, I sold the GS. Had nothing extra for a little while. Just had the 3 cars. Oh, after the GS was my 1999 BMW 323i. Yeah, the E46, which I have actually since sold. I don't know if anyone really knows about that, but I did sell that car. 363,000 miles when I bought it. I sold it with 364,000, and now it has 367,000 on it. I sold it to my buddy Dane, and he's been keeping me updated on
Open adoption.
stuff. Open adoption. That car was fantastic. I paid $1,000 for it. It was great. It was dead reliable. It always started.
It just had a very disturbing clunking sound.
Yeah,
when you
the
would shift
diff bushings are like made
wiggling.
of dust at this point. But yeah, it was a great car.
Mhm.
I owned it for a year and a half.
Pretty much never drove it. I put some miles on it.
You put more miles on it than I did. I
Mhm.
never drove it. I
Yeah.
maybe put 100 miles on it.
Right, just
I
shoot
like
some
never
videos
drove it.
and-
Yeah. Maybe I put 200 on it because I did actually drive it for a little bit.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I drove it back and forth to Buttman a few times.
I think you had to take it home a few times.
I
'cause
drove
I
it-
remember you swapping it
Yep,
at my house.
I did. I took it home a few times. I drove Emily to the dentist in it once.
Okay.
That's how little I drove it. Is
Yeah,
I
you
remember
know,
like
the specific
certain little
trips.
specific trips I took in it. So I probably put 200 miles on it.
Okay.
And you probably put 200 miles on it.
Oh.
Keone drove it a little bit.
Yeah,
Keone drove
Keone
it.
put some miles
Drove
on
it home a couple times, I want to say. Corbett drove it for a little bit when his ML55
car.
broke. Yeah, well, I
We'll
mean,
get to
I
it.
didn't care. I was like, I might
Yeah,
have this extra
you're a nice
car.
guy.
Just go drive.
Yeah.
Paid $1,000 for it. I don't care what happens to it. You can go
Mhm.
drive it, whatever. And yeah, so it actually served as a loaner car for a few people.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's Dane's permanent loaner car.
Yeah, his DD.
And he loves it. He
Yeah,
loves
I
the
don't blame
car. Yeah, which is, I'm glad that it went to him because he's all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the Volvo that we only owned really briefly, and I didn't really love that Volvo. Nathan super loved that car. Mom liked it too. I just never.
Nathan hit a deer in it.
Yes. Yep. But not like hard.
Yeah.
Just kind of dented it a little bit. We traded it in. No, we didn't trade it in. We sold it to that
Sold it to a
individual.
lady.
Sold it private party. But we purchased our 2022 Ford Maverick XLT FX4.
With 4K tow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's been a great little truck. Talked about it a bunch on the podcast. Don't need to say too much
Yeah,
more.
you're caught up, huh?
But
oh no,
almost.
you're not. You have 2
Yeah.
more still.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and we ended up getting it because we drove the Maverick at Mama, or at least I did. Did you end up driving a Maverick at Mama?
I drove it for 30 seconds.
That's right. And I was like, holy crap, this is actually a really good car. Because at first I'd always thought the Maverick was ugly and the Santa Cruz was the one to have.
Yeah.
But after driving both, I was like, no, the Maverick's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Got one. Shout out to the Ford dealer in Charlevoix, Michigan for not marking it up at all. And we signed all the paperwork digitally. And they literally just like left the key in it, locked with the keypad code. And I came into town like a Christmas Eve or whatever, drove it away.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so after the E46, Did I get my S-Class before the E46? No, I didn't. No, okay. So
No.
after the E46, I got my 1986 Mercedes-Benz 420 SEL from Copart Flint, just like how Charlie got his Lexus LS. And it was in a drive-by shooting.
Yeah,
All the windows
presumably.
are blown out. Presumably, I don't know. I would love to, for the 4 people that are listening right now, I mean, I would love to get the story of this car. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but
Let's drive up into the streets of Flint
No.
in it and just kind of see, like, hey, anyone recognize and know who used to drive around in this car?
If you ever no longer wanted to live anymore, that'd be a good way to do so. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, that was an impulse buy. I definitely should not have bought that car. It was a very silly decision because I kind of stranded myself with it a little bit because of the fact that it has to be parked indoors because it doesn't have windows. I did just get a windshield put in it though, so we're making some progress. And I've got doors in my office.
I only have a limited amount of pity for you with this car because you had the opportunity to get the 4th door and you just didn't spring on it. You dragged your feet and it ran away from you. And the other 3 doors have been there. And I understand why you've been waiting to put them in because you're like, well, why do I do the 3? Wait for the 4th, do it all at once. But that's going to be a big, busy day of doing all those.
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't prepped the doors at all. You still want to change the panels and everything like that.
Well, that'll happen. That'll happen when I pull the doors off the other car.
But so you're signing yourself up for like a really long day.
Yeah, the other thing
of
is I have to have my buddy Eric come to do like the wiring and stuff.
Yeah, so
'Cause
that'll
the
be
wires
a
are
big
just
thing.
cut on those.
Right.
We're gonna have to pull the wires out of those doors, pull the wires out of the doors that are on the car, and feed the old wires into the new doors.
Right. So it's going to be a big deal. And
it's not going to be one day. It's going to be multiple days.
And the car needs a fuel pump.
Probably,
Or at least some level of
gummed up,
diagnosis.
disgusting old gas in it because it was running a little better when we put the new premium fuel in it.
Right, and that all could have been figured out while the weather was nice, and you could have driven it around with the windows down and the sunshine and everything.
But the windshield though.
Is the windshield? Yeah, you could have driven it with the windshield like that.
I guess. But anyways, that was a purchase.
Copart makes it very easy to just go, you'll bid on this.
It was a purchase from my heart, not from my head, because I've always loved that generation of Mercedes, the bank vault, boxy, Ugandan warlord style. It's a really cool car. I've always wanted a W126.
It'll end up being Alyssa's daily driver at some point.
Oh, because we're gonna convert it to an EV.
Oh, I just meant just because. Cool.
Oh, I mean if you
car.
Oh, I don't. Yeah. So yeah, that car. I like it a lot, but I wish I wouldn't have bought it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very cool car. I wish I would have bought a different W126 that
wasn't part of a murder.
To be fair also to myself and to make one more excuse. When I bought that car, I was not nearly as busy as I am now.
Right. And that was
I have
how
a
it was
lot
with my
more
LS
responsibilities
too.
now
Yeah.
than I did back in 2020. Yeah, I bought that in 2020. No, I didn't. I bought it in 2021
because we had the shop.
Yeah. So I bought it in like October or September of 21. I had way less responsibilities.
Yeah.
Now I'm like busy all week and the car just sits here inside taking up one of my spots. And it's a big boy too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool. I mean, it's gray with a red interior. The red interior is the reason I bought it.
It is. It is
because it's pretty uncommon to find the red interior.
Right.
So I was on Copart. It was already on my watch list. I happened to have my phone out. I'm like, oh, that S-Class is going live. I clicked on the auction. The bid was at like $1,200, and I'm like, I'll throw a bid in. Bid $1,250. Thing goes around. Bonus time. I'm like, oh crap. Sold. And I'm like, oh, okay. Guess that's mine.
Yep. Well, on a similar vein,
yeah.
After the Maverick, Chris and I were on Copart on this very podcast.
On the podcast, yeah.
Yep. And he pointed out to me in the Copart segment that there was a 2008 Ford Escape hybrid in hybrid green, as it's not actually called hybrid green.
What
but
is
I
that?
just like to think
We're going to find out what that color's called.
Okay,
Continue.
that sounds good. Don't forget, there are 2 different greens. So
I
make sure you
know,
get the right one. And I've always kind of wanted an Escape hybrid because I've just always thought they were cool. They were like the first hybrid crossover on the market, and then decently fuel efficient, good packaging. And this car had 330,000 miles, but Chris and I could just tell by being car lovers that it was a good car, that it had been owned properly, it had hit deer, damage wasn't that bad, running and driving and everything.
The cool thing about Michigan Copart listings is you can view the auto check report.
Yeah, and we knew it was a one-owner car, and it needed to be saved. So bid on it, saved it, scooped it, and let it sit for a while, as we just talked about, Chris, which we tend to do with our Copart pickups.
Yeah.
And eventually got it running really well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great driving car. I would not have hesitated to drive that car across country.
Yeah. Oh, that thing was
Yeah,
really,
if,
really
if Chris
nice.
and I weren't busy shooting stupid infotainment videos and that sort of deal and recording these podcasts, we would have taken his E46 and my Escape and driven them California and back.
It's a shame we never did a fuel economy test on either,
Yeah.
but whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then I'm coming down to my last one. So
That's right. Well, I was going to say, Kiwi metallic clear coat.
Kiwi metallic clear coat. Yep. That's such a great color.
Kiwi. And it's actually very accurate. I
Mhm.
would say it's very close to Kiwi.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the W126, I bought a 2000 Mercedes-Benz ML55 AMG because I didn't learn my lesson with the other Mercedes that I
Yeah.
bought. And I
Needed
thought-
another V8 Mercedes.
And I thought, I'll spend $1,000 on an AMG car. So I did. $1,000 from my buddy Corbett, who daily drove this thing for like a year and a half.
And maintained it meticulously.
No, actually the opposite of that. I think he changed the oil once. He put just about 20,000 miles on it. I think he changed the oil once, maybe twice. It was actually a really good car for him until it developed the latest problem that it's been having now and is still having, where starts up, idles great until it's under load, and then it just sputters and dies. So we don't know what's going on with it. We think we've got it narrowed down to the electronic throttle body is going. So we're going to see if putting a new one of those on fixes it. But I'm probably about $2,500 into this car now, which is still low enough because I think once it's fixed, running, driving fine, it'll be like a $5,000 car. So I refuse to be over $3,000 into it, though. I think $3,000 is like the limit for.
Well, the tough thing is, though, is you've already committed, you put so many like maintenance items into it that it's almost a shame. I mean, like if you could just figure it out, then you'd have a
That's what I
really
mean.
good running
I know.
ML.
I know.
That.
Well, it should. We should be good after the throttle body. Where's the wood?
This is wood.
That's wood. Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about that car. I've got a couple videos of it. Actually, well, I've got one main video of it on my channel, and then there's a couple on the Topher channel if you're curious to.
Yes, and at some point, if Chris and I get bored, which we won't, we will take my sputtery running car and his sputtery running car and
Good
see which
segue,
one
Charlie.
can get up to top speed. My most recently purchased vehicle was traded for that Escape, and it is a 2003. I believe it's my first 03, because I can't remember if my Taurus was a 2 or a 3. Ford F350 Super Duty with the 6-liter Power Stroke, and it's also an FX4, and it is also a King Ranch edition.
It's the longest name ever.
Yeah, well, you'd also have to put short wheelbase, I guess, in there as well, because it's
Short bed?
It's the short bed. It's 7 feet, but it's the short bed compared
Yeah.
to the two.
Mhm.
Yeah, the thing's a basket case. I traded the Escape for it.
It
I traded
is.
a perfectly great running car in really, really good shape for a horribly running
totally
car in
something I would
crappy
do.
shape.
I love that.
Straight trade. The guy wanted to. I mean, you've heard about it if you're fans of the podcast. The guy wanted a more fuel efficient vehicle. Probably wanted a vehicle that wasn't running like crap.
Yeah.
And did the trade.
I'm sure he's quite pleased.
I'm sure he is. Yeah, he's got to be. And although I wonder if he's tried to like I wonder what happened the first time he opened the hood in the Escape and just bashed it radiator.
Well,
mount.
you disclosed that it had hit a deer, so he shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. Thank you. Appreciate that. The truck is sitting outside, back
That's
behind
right.
this wall,
Yeah.
quite a few walls.
And we've got a
away.
video going up on Christmas about it.
Yeah. Do you like how I scheduled that on Christmas?
Yeah. I need to give you my audio from that actually before I
yeah, I need
forget.
to get that.
Okay. Well, I guess
So
I've only-
that is it. That is all the cars I've owned. So what are you?
and I've got one left. So I beat you by
wow.
one.
Well, we're really close.
Yeah, we are close.
Yeah.
So my final car, the one I've bought most recently, is a 1999 BMW M Roadster. Unless we're counting all the Ford Focuses I've bought this year.
No. No. Or else we'd have to count bikes, in which case we would also still be pretty
Yeah,
close.
that's true. Anyways, okay,
Mhm.
we're cars we've actually owned. 1999 BMW M Roadster Dynon Stage 1. Bought it from my buddy Sean down at Cowthan Mayer in Peoria, Illinois. Paid $9,000 for it. Probably the cheapest M Roadster. It's the cheapest M Roadster I've ever seen. But immediately I put a new clutch, new belts, new blower motor actuator, new Bridgestone Potenza Sport tires. Shout out Davis.
And then I drove it home.
And then Charlie drove it home and thought he was on the Autobahn.
Yeah, it was great.
And then the glove
I had
box fell off the dashboard.
That's Gretchen Whitmer's fault, because going down 94, da-ding, da-ding, da-ding.
Yeah. Well, it probably, makes it more noticeable when you're going 130, but that's just.
I mean, maybe it would. I wouldn't know. Gosh. That car loves to sing. I mean, 5 speeds.
God, that engine is so sweet. That S52 with the Dynan
just
exhaust.
I want you to get it working properly. So
It is
it is
working
working.
You could go drive it if you want. You just got to drive with the
Just
roof
be cold.
down or
Yeah.
with a ripped rear window. It'll still
Yeah.
drive fine.
All right, let's go take it for a spin.
Okay. I mean, I think he's actually putting the rear window in right now.
Oh, that's cool.
I think that's something he's doing today.
Neat.
But yeah, that's a fantastic car. It's just cosmetically rough. That's why I got it so cheap.
Yeah,
The
are you
wheels-
still gonna get it cleaned up? Or
Probably not. The wheels need refinishing.
Why not the rear trunk? The trunk lid.
The trunk needs paint because the car's so faded overall. It's like if you paint the trunk, it's just gonna look silly.
Yeah, that's
you
fair.
know.
Okay.
So I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna try and sell it as is, and if I can't get what I want, then maybe I will do some cosmetic refinishing to it. I don't have to get rid of the car. I would like to have some more cash freed up, and I just have so many vehicles right now.
If you all can get Daily Motor to have a ton of subs and a ton of views over this winter, I will buy the M Roadster from Chris. And have it as a nice winter or summer car.
I'd sell it to you for like not much more than I have into it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't really care to profit.
And it would
off
still
of
be
you.
around if you like wanted to do something with it. Yeah, I'd leave the exterior pretty much as is.
I was gonna say
I'd clean up the interior.
The interior doesn't need much. I would
try to eliminate the rattling and the seat shifting.
Right,
the
seat bushings. See, I forgot about all that stuff.
Because you haven't driven it.
The interior looks great though.
It looks much better, yeah.
Because I got the seat fixed and I put the glove box back up mostly.
Did you fix the center console thing there? Okay.
No.
What about the
No, but you and I did a weight reduction when we took that speaker out that wasn't plugged into anything.
Right.
Or bolted into anything. That was probably one of the rattles.
Probably, honestly.
Yeah, because it doesn't rattle nearly as bad as it did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So it had to have been that speaker.
Alyssa did not enjoy the rattling in that car, which is a shame because I loved driving it.
Yeah. Yeah. So subscribe to Daily Motor and we'll keep the M Roadster.
There you go.
There you go. So I think that's it. Have I?
Cool. So I need to buy a car. Is what I'm.
You do actually.
You
should just buy the M Roadster. Honestly. Let's see.
If I bought a Chevy Bolt, we would be tied up.
If I owned anything else is the question. I don't think there's anything else on VinWiki that I've owned.
Maybe during Christmas at some point I'll go through and fill out a VinWiki thing for all my cars.
You should. I briefly owned a manual Fusion, but that was a flip, so I don't know. The title was in my name though.
How long did you own it?
Month.
I think that probably counts.
Okay. Well, I don't.
If it was, I guess if it was.
I've owned so many like cars here and there that I've just.
If we counted the Malibu, I feel like we got to count the Fusion.
That's true.
A manual Fusion, first gen.
What do you consider a first gen? I think it was a 2012.
That's a second gen. I didn't know they made a manual second gen.
Yeah.
Did you drive it at all?
Or it was a 2011. Maybe.
You drive it at
I don't
all?
know. Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought it. Bought it from a guy in Metro Detroit somewhere. He was a motorcycle enthusiast, and he no longer wanted his manual Fusion because he was working from home. So he was like, "Why do I need a car? I'll just ride my bike if I need to go somewhere."
Okay.
Obviously, I don't know what sort of bike it was.
Sure.
I think it was red.
Yeah, the red one.
So
Good bike.
it needed a steering rack. Very common problem. Steering gear they call it in those Fusions. Very common problem. It was actually extended warranty, and it was a recall. The cord just moved. I don't know if you unplugged a mic or not. Okay. But yeah, I think I bought it for like $1,800 or something. Super clean manual, and put a steering rack in it. That was like $1,000, but then we sold it for like $5,000. So
you and Patrick again?
Yeah, Patrick and I. Every Ford that I flip is with Patrick.
Nice.
Patrick's my Ford tech,
flipper. Yeah.
so he knows how to do everything I need.
Cool.
So, yeah, that was a cool car. Unfortunately, it was like right before I started filming for Winding Road, or else I would have filmed a Winding Road video on it.
1 million views.
Yeah, I bought it in July. No, I bought it in June of 2020, and I sold it in August of 2020. So
nice.
Yeah. I drove it a little bit. I maybe put 25 miles on it. I had more than that because I drove it back from Detroit. I probably put 50 miles on it. Yeah.
The other thing I will point out as we wrap up here is that you have 3 years less on me that you've gotten all those cars. So not only are you ahead,
That's true.
but
I have more of an addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least it isn't drugs.
That's true. Yeah, it's just much more costly. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode, this special episode of the Daily Motor Podcast. I'm going to talk to Chris to see if he's willing to shoot another episode today, and we're going to hash out those details.
I'm just concerned that you haven't eaten today. Is the only thing.
We'll get that figured out after here. So you might be hearing this the day after Christmas, or you might be hearing this
Oh no, that's a good idea.
earlier this week. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll figure that out. Either way, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one, or just talk to you if you're one of the listening folks.
Yeah.
We are addicted to buying cars and owning them, and as always, drive on, and own on, and bid on, and brake, and
Art on, leak oil on.
Yeah, leak oil. Yeah, burn
exploding
smoke.
exploding power steering reservoir on.
Burn your hand on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
Stromboni scar on.